My father, late 50s, left my mom when I, 20 male, was a toddler, and my sister was a newborn baby. Mom had many health problems after this, and we were instead raised by our grandpa, Dad's dad, and grandma until her passing when I was 7. Grandpa died last year, and I took over as legal guardian for my sister. Grandpa had nothing to do with my deadbeat father. However, he was aware the deadbeat had married and fathered other children in the last 5 years, but it had changed nothing for him because he didn't look too kindly on a man who would abandon 2 children the way my father did. He literally left the country to evade child support and refused contact with his family for years. He also emptied out all the money he and my mom had before he left us, so he left us with literally nothing. When Grandpa drew up his will, he investigated how he could leave my father with nothing, but that wasn't an option. However, he didn't need to leave him with more than a single dollar, and that's what he did. The portion that would have been my father's was divided between my sister and me. He also left the house to my sister and me. My estranged father attempted to fight the will and get the share my sister and I own, but he was denied because my grandfather did everything above board. My father's siblings ended up back in contact with him after Grandpa died, and while they're not as close as before, they have a relationship that my sister and I have no interest in being a part of. So here's where the moral question comes in. My father has a child who has a life-limiting medical condition. He and his wife struggle to keep their heads above water with 4 young kids and little money. He feels I should give him my share of the inheritance for the sake of the kids, believing Grandpa was wrong not to think of them at all in his will. He left nothing to my deadbeat's other children. I told him he wasn't getting anything from me, and then my father's siblings got involved. They feel I should give him my share, and that having the house and my sister having the money should be good enough. But I could do it as an act of kindness from other siblings that I refuse to meet or get to know. I've been under some intense pressure over this, and it's all driven by the illness and condition that one of his children has. I know that's the only reason my aunts and uncles are so bothered by it. Am I the idiot? Grandpa knew what he was doing. You said Grandpa knew he had other children, but left his first 2, and drained the bank account, and purposely acted in a way to not have any financial responsibility to you, your sister, or your mom. Grandpa specifically left it to you and your sister. Your deadbeat dad is facing the consequences of his actions now. Tell your father and his flying monkeys that the inheritance you and your sister received was a back payment to cover some of the child support your father ran out on and the money he stole from your mom, and the house was because he was trying to make up for raising such a crappy son. You're not the idiot, but please talk to a financial advisor to make the money last. I guess it's back pay for abandoning you, your sister, and your mom. On top of that, who does your donor think he is, coming around after abandoning you for years and trying to fight for your inheritance? He can skedaddle like he did all those years ago, LOL, and your aunts and uncles, since they're so bothered about your siblings' illness. Tell them to pay for all the medical fees. Don't give them a dime, OP. My wife, 35, and I, 36 male, have been married for 4 years and have 2 kids, both toddlers. My wife's parents divorced when she was a teenager, and her mom and dad have since remarried. There's a lot of competition between her mom, dad, and stepmom regarding family time. Everything has to be equal. If we spend an afternoon with her mom, we have to do the same thing with her dad and stepmom. Mom and stepmom especially put a lot of pressure on my wife and guilt trip her about it. My wife has trouble standing up for herself and saying no. Before we had kids, this wasn't as big of a deal. It would not be a huge deal if we attended 2 to 3 different Thanksgivings or Christmas gatherings. I mean, it sucked, but it wasn't the end of the world. Now, though, with 2 young kids, it's exhausting, and I absolutely hate it. My wife and I have had numerous talks about her setting boundaries about this because I'm at the end of my rope with it. The constant bickering and pressure and the need to keep everything equal determines our entire non-work schedule. We had to attend 2 separate Easter events this spring. We're not even religious because we went to one with her mom, so we had to do one with her dad and stepmom. After that, I told my wife I was done with this BS. I told her that she needs to stand up to her parents and start setting boundaries and saying no. I told her I wouldn't allow her parents to continue to dictate how we live our lives. I told her that if she's incapable of doing this, I'll step in and tell them off. But she begged me not to do that because she didn't want to ruffle feathers and promised to do better. Of course, that didn't happen. Because of this same stuff, we had to run around to 3 separate places on Memorial Weekend. After we got home from the last stop, I told my wife I was done with this and would now pick and choose which things I wanted to go to. I won't stop her from going, and I'll stay home with one or both kids if she doesn't want to take them. But I'm done. Lo and behold, this past weekend, she was talking to her mom and the 4th of July came up. My father-in-law had already invited us to his house for a pool day, and my wife told her mom about it. So of course we have to do something with them that weekend as well. When my wife told me about this, I told her that I would not be attending both, and that I would choose if I wanted to attend either. My wife must have vented to her mom about this, because a couple of days later, I got a call from my wife's stepdad, the only sane person in this. He told me that he completely agrees with me and has talked with his wife numerous times about not pressuring my wife, but she doesn't listen either. He suggested that whenever his wife pressures my wife into keeping things equal, he and I go golfing together instead. When I told my wife about this idea, she called me a jerk and told me I was being unsupportive. Edit. This is a big issue for me too. The amount of time we spend with my side of the family is drastically smaller than the amount of time we spend with her side. Thankfully, my parents are not insane, and I feel bad for my wife's situation. But I do miss spending extended time with them over the holidays, rather than rushing from place to place to see everybody. Well, there seems to be 2 adults here, and neither's a blood relative to your wife. You should both just enjoy your golf outing. Go have peaceful, relaxing holidays away from the grown-up children and their tantrums. Not the idiot, but your wife must stop being a doormat. Everyone's the idiot here. I feel like you're simply replacing one problem with another. Threatening to run roughshod over your wife's wishes is precisely what her overbearing parents are doing. If you want to help without being another parent in this situation, volunteer to fall on a sword for her. Give excuses yourself for not going to both events, e.g. work conflict, sprained back, allergies, etc., and let her get used to going to just one event at a time. Let her build up the courage to say no by seeing how inconsequential missing 2 out of 3 holiday celebrations is, and how much happier you are as a nuclear family, enjoying and suffering only one event at a time. I'm a 26-year-old female. I've been with my husband since we were 14, and we had a baby less than a year ago. I've always gotten along with my mother-in-law. She's a very sweet woman who would literally take the shirt off her back to make sure I'm okay. I love this woman tremendously, but for whatever reason, every time she's come over to see the baby, my daughter screams bloody murder the entire time she's here. She doesn't do this with anyone else, but the second my mother-in-law walks through the door and my daughter sees her, she's in my ear screaming, hyperventilating, and inconsolable. It's been like this since she was born. My mother-in-law first visited when she was less than a week old, and it was the same thing then. We've never been super cautious about having people over to see our daughter, but like I said, she's not like this with anyone else. She doesn't like some people touching her, but she never cries. My mother-in-law is just the polar opposite. She's been able to successfully hold her once without her screaming. Still, it was when she was holding her face away from her, and my husband was entertaining her to keep her distracted. My mother-in-law comes over once a week, and honestly, I've just started completely dreading her coming here at all, because I'm not kidding. My daughter screams the entire time, and sometimes my mother-in-law doesn't leave for a couple of hours. It's not fun for anyone involved. Well, she came here yesterday, and my husband is starting to get irritated by the fact that our daughter refuses to warm up to his mother because she's been a huge part of our lives. So he suggested that she started coming here more often than she already does to attempt to force the bond. I personally know it doesn't work like that. If the bond was going to happen, it would have already happened. She simply doesn't like my mother-in-law. I thought maybe it was the perfume my mother-in-law wore, so she stopped wearing perfume, but that did nothing. I told her to stop wearing jewelry to see if that helped, but again, that did nothing. I've even had her put her hair up, thinking maybe my daughter was getting overwhelmed by not being able to see her face completely, and that actually made it worse. I told her to stop baby talking her because she has a very high-pitched baby talk voice, but her normal voice didn't calm the baby down either. And honestly, I'm exhausted and fed up with trying. I don't think we should try. I think we need to let it go and let it form naturally. She'll warm up to her eventually in her own time. But my husband is basically just not okay with it. All because my mom came here to see us for the first time last month. She lives in the UK, and traveling to the US is hard for her. Our daughter immediately loved her and didn't want her to set her down. So my husband felt slighted about it. And as I said, he wants his mom to come here more. Well, usually I don't mind when my mother-in-law stops by, but she came by unannounced this morning at 8:30 a.m. And I mean, I had just woken up with the baby. She had a long night teething, so I'm talking about 3 hours of sleep. She comes in and says that my husband told her to just come over and hang out for the day. She said she cleared her entire schedule to be here. I just shook my head and said, I really don't want to deal with the baby screaming all day long. I wish you guys had run this by me. You know I love having you here, but this whole let's force a bond BS is dragging me mentally. You guys should have asked me. She looked hurt and said, It's okay, sweetie, I can go. And she left a few minutes later. But now my husband is mad at me, insisting that this would have worked. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. In fact, give your husband the chance to prove his theory. You leave for a few hours and let him have fun with the screaming baby. Let him take the baby to mother-in-law. Change the scenery and remove yourself. The baby's likely reacting to your stress at this point. Your baby can sense you better than anyone. Dad absolutely needs to be part of the solution instead of volunteering his tired and stressed out wife for more hours of sound torture. He takes the baby to mother-in-law, and OP stays home and has some time to herself. Sorry, OP, but that really was an idiot move on his part. You are the idiot. You can't keep ignoring the problem. Your husband should have talked to you before asking his mom to come for a whole day. Still, he's right that avoiding your mother-in-law is neither fair nor effective in dealing with this. Get support with your fears around the breath holding and processing your anxiety around the baby, and come up with a plan to face the issue instead of pushing away your mother-in-law. That isn't a solution. I moved from South Korea when I was 12, now 18, so I still have citizenship and have to go back to Korea to do my mandatory military service eventually. In simple terms, in South Korea, you can do your military service from when you're 18 to 28 or 29. Some people choose to enlist later, and some do it earlier. You serve for 2 years and then you can do whatever. I decided I wanted to get it over with and do it before I went to college, so very soon, so I don't have to worry about it after that. When I told my girlfriend, Korean as well but American, she got angry. She told me to consider other people before I did. We got into a fight, and she called me an idiot for abandoning her and choosing to leave her just when we were about to start college. She wanted me to defer at least until we finished college. Maybe I'm in the wrong because I thought she would just support my decision, but I honestly believe that since this is my life, I should be allowed to make my own decisions. Am I the idiot? Edit. I did talk to her about it before, but neither of us put a lot of thought into the conversation. We've been dating for 6 months. You're 18. This is typically what happens at 18. It's likely your first serious relationship, and while a few go the distance, people your age choose different paths in life. In your case, this military service is mandatory unless you want to drop your citizenship. I agree, better now than in 10 years. Go do it. She's wrong, and will understand she's wrong in 5 or 10 years. If she keeps fighting you, then she's miss wrong. She would only be miss right if she had the maturity most 18-year-olds do not and let you go. You are the idiot. You showed her she isn't a priority in your life by not talking to her or considering how much this affects her. It hurts to find out someone you care about doesn't really think of you when planning the future. Military service will affect her in one way or another. 2 years away means you're choosing to end your relationship. She realizes this, although you may not have yet. This is about my middle daughter, Kara. A few months ago, I informed her that I would stop giving her an allowance when she was in her mid-teens. I did this because she's old enough to earn her own pocket money by getting a job or babysitting for anyone in the family. It's also a good job experience for her to work and really understand getting a paycheck, not to mention learning how to interact with coworkers. Multiple families have younger children and are always asking for relatives who can babysit. So there is something quite easy for her to do if she doesn't want to get a part-time job. I did the same thing with my older son, and he got his own job at the local pool. There are plenty of jobs around the area, so that's not an issue. I made it clear I would help both of them get jobs, and when my son asked, I helped him with his resume. So her birthday came and went. She asked me where her allowance was, and I reminded her that she no longer gets one. This started an argument, and she thinks I'm an idiot for doing this. My husband also thinks I should give in, but I do not. You are the idiot. That age is an odd choice. 18 makes more sense to me. I wouldn't want my kids to lose focus on their education. They have the rest of their lives to work. In my opinion, children shouldn't have to work until 18. I make more than enough to support my kid. You do you, though. Why? Where I live, her age is when it becomes much easier for a kid to find a part-time job. Working a few hours a week for pocket money shouldn't be enough to put anyone's education at risk. And if it does, OP can make an adjustment. I'm not sure why this seems like such a surprise to the daughter, since it seems OP did the same thing with an older brother. OP's not the idiot. Agreed. OP even gave Kara an easy solution: babysitting for friends and family. She doesn't even have to find a job. She can put her work history on her college application in a couple of years. Sounds like this kid is a little lazy and/or entitled. This is a great way to cure her of that. And if OP did the same with the older brother, I'm not sure why Kara would be surprised that this is the expectation.